Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to the first episode of the ITSM crowd. My name is Claire Agata and I'm the lead tutor for ITSM Zone. We are an online best practice training company and we have, as part of our service, a team of fantastic mentors who support our students, and I'm really happy to have three of our mentors with us today. We've got Daniel Breston, we've got Robert Pattaccini, and we've got Suresh GP joining us today. Today's topic is IT service management and projects, and we're just going to share some experience and talk about how project management and IT service management work together and maybe sometimes don't work together quite so well as well. But the first thing I'm going to do is ask our participants to introduce themselves. So working from the left on my screen, Daniel, would you like to say hello, please?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Breston, and I've been in IT for several decades. I've gone from IT service management expert on the IT ops side all of my life to heavily into lean in ITSM and DevOps.
Okay, thank you very much. And Robert?
Yes, good morning. My name is Robert Pattaccini. I have more than 20 years in IT experience. I work on ITSM topics now more than 15 years, and I set up my own consultancy company 1 year ago.
Brilliant, thank you. And Suresh?
Good morning, good afternoon to wherever you are. Thanks, Claire, for inviting us for this edition of the Hangout. So my name is Suresh GP. I hail from Bangalore, India. I've been a service management consultant practitioner the last 14 plus years and started my own company last 6 months back called Top Solutions. I also am part of board of director for ITSM of India, and I've worked in big, large transformation projects, portfolios, as well as bread and butter on service management. So we're glad to be here, and I look forward to this enlightening discussion then.
Brilliant, thank you everyone. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about today was how service management and project management fit together. If we look at it from a product perspective, we have the ITIL product, which is the best known product for service management, and we have things like Prince2 and PMI for project management, and quite often they're seen as being completely separate areas within an organisation. The project management community doesn't always feel like there's much overlap with the service management community. So my first question is, how do service management and project management fit together, or how should they fit together?
I'll start. I also do Prince2, and when I did Prince2, it was the easiest exam I ever took. And the reason why is because Prince2 is ITIL change management with a little bit more detail, but at the end, it's, you set up a meeting, you get the requirements, you say yes, you say no, you say maybe, and then you go. And every step, you do that. Which for me was ITIL change management before you give it to dev, and then dev, you have a yes, no before it goes to QA, and yes, no before it goes to test, and yes, no before it goes live, all the way down. So it made a lot of sense. From a DevOps and Lean perspective, they use project management in a room where everyone is working together on the same thing at the same time, so it facilitates the speed and quality that maybe the ITIL community is not seeing because they're not linked end to end. It's a team of people doing something and another team of people doing something, and the community says put them all together, which is introducing a lot of good tools and standardization. But I like them together.
in my opinion, the way I look at it is project management or service management. I'll just make it as simple. This 4 P's of service management is still relevant to project as well. So be it with
Mhm.
people, these products and partners. Now, what I also understand, and I'm running all these kind of projects, is whether it is PMI, is it Prince 2, we are talking about an outcome, right? But be
Yeah.
it service, we're looking at delivering a service which is reaching the business outcome or projects. So I think there's a very tight correlation between projects management and service management. It's just that these two people think they are two different things. But if you look at an organization embarking on a service management journey or a project management journey, they have to work together in tandem. Otherwise, you cannot really uh, deliver real business outcomes. So there's no question about saying where it fits in because it's an integral part of any organization to deliver outcomes. Be it we talk about customers in terms
Mhm.
of management, whereas in service it could be users. So the stakeholders are a little different, but it could be the same piece together. So I see a very good collaboration between project management and service management, helping each other and complementing each other to deliver business outcomes.
Okay.
From my point of view, to emphasize the link between project management and service management, I convince and I go with the customer in a journey to explain that when you start a project, you have to define your deliverable. So it's very important that they have the good requirements and so on. So
Mhm.
I use service management strategy, demand management, and service design really to make the link between the service management area and the project management to be efficient when you deliver things to the customer. And this is a good way to see the added value and between um, project management and service management, really starting from the beginning, from the requirement definition.
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's interesting, Daniel, that you mentioned DevOps as well, and kind of the move towards more agile ways of working, because Prince 2 defines projects as kind of temporary structures. And I do think perhaps some of this division comes from the fact that projects are seen as kind of the development thing that's maybe just throwing things over the wall, to operations, which is service management, and then the project is taken apart and the resources are allocated elsewhere. So this idea of project management in a room that you mentioned, Daniel, I do really like that. I think that's a powerful idea, because if you can actually get the project side and the service management side talking to each other, then that's going to be a much more unified way of working. So I think there's definitely some advantages there. There is I don't know if you've seen, there's an Agile Prince 2 certification coming out later this year. I don't know if you've seen that or got any comments on that, if you think that's a positive step forward.
Uh, a couple of the guys that wrote the book I know and are helping to create the course I know. I know there's already at least one person out there that's thinking that they have something. Um, I, the challenge that I had when I looked at the initial material was it looked like it went and took Prince 2 and went, okay, we're going to go and make it agile looking.
Okay.
Okay. Which meant to me was they got the team that was going to create something, and now I'm not going to call them developers because Prince 2 works in lots of different environments, as does Agile. But the team that was going to create something and the team that was going to manage that creation. But I didn't see enough of the customer involvement on a regular basis, which is what Agile is really trying to call for, is that the customer and the person that's creating it are working together.
Mm.
See enough of the people that then had to keep it up, keep it running. So in our world, the operation side or the service supplier side, if you're going to a service integration model. Those four groups all being together, all the major stakeholders being together at the same time, from the time of idea to the time of delivery and improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that I think they still need to work out. They need to create that, or you're going to have agile, but you're not going to have agility.
Okay, yeah.
You're going to have governed project management that's a little bit faster, but you're not going to have the agility that everybody is thinking they're going to get.
Yeah, and I think that there's potentially a big cultural change for organisations in moving towards more agile ways of working. I went on the Train the Trainer for the Prince to Agile a few weeks ago, and one thing I did really enjoy is there does seem to be a lot of practical takeaways in the course. So there are things, it talks about things like Scrum and Kanban, and it maybe introduces these to people who won't have come across them before, and it's going to help them just think, well, maybe that's something we can introduce in my organisation. Suresh and Robert, have you seen elements of Agile coming into projects in organisations that you're working in?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I strongly advocate project management best practices is it's actually quite dynamic in nature, and with the demand from business, they're also scaling up, be it on Scrum, Agile. And if you look at in India, regions like India and other stuff, they have like strong, big portfolio projects and
Yeah.
programs that across in a huge size, And I'm talking about not specific to IT sector, but on construction, large, big government projects and stuff like that, which is, several $1 million of worth,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff like that. And the level of nimbleness that is required with changing business demands, you need to be really on top. Otherwise, it becomes so difficult. So we have a lot of agile practitioners. And typically, if you look at the Indian sector and more or less in Southeast Asia, we follow PMI methodology as opposed to Prince 2. Wherever we have had clients to with Europe, we have had people opt for Prince 2. Otherwise, it's more of PMI, and then they've gone now with Scrum, Agile, and stuff. So there is a huge level of demand for Agile practitioners, Agile
Mm-hmm.
project managers, because gone are the days that we thought about a standard methodology of running projects, because it's so dynamic. The customer landscape is changing, the business demand is changing. So what we are seeing is that, and particularly after I've started my own business, there's a lot of demand asking for doing agile related trainings and practical business simulations. So
Yeah.
going forward direction, if we don't scale up fast, we are actually going to lose business and also customers. So it's a need of the art to scale up and then deliver those things quickly. So I'm seeing this is a transformation for project management as part of Agile is coming, and it's going to be an Agile transformation, in my opinion.
Certainly. What about your market, Robert?
Yes, today my today's customer is doing an agile transformation, and what we remark is not the difficulties is not actually to do the Scrum and so on, but it's really the connection to the business requirement to get really benefit on that, reduce time to market, selection of the good idea, to be the first on the market.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons of that is that because the product owner on the DevOps team is not really well defined or didn't know what he has to do. And another things that I see also is that people try to really do translate the waterfall model into an agile model, and then you lost all the agility. So it's really what I think that today there is a room of improvement. We need to connect what we call the epics and the feature layer to improve those layers and to get the benefit into the DevOps team. That's what I see today.
Definitely.
Challenges.
Yeah, and I think talking about the fact that the move to Agile from a project management perspective is being driven by a need to be more responsive to customers. I think we have exactly the same in service management as well, and customers they always want more, better, faster, cheaper. But this is certainly what's driving some of these maybe new ways of working within IT. But like you say, Robert, there are some significant challenges in changing mindsets, I think, and you don't want to end up with just an agile waterfall. Something else that I wanted to think about today was how project management can actually benefit service management. Now, it's not a popular phrase, the idea of implementing ITIL, but as an organisation brings in service management, do you think that there's some benefit in adopting a project approach to that, or should it just be done as part of ongoing improvement and business as usual?
I can take that question. I look at a couple of areas where project management, in my opinion, project management is a superset and service management is a subset of that. Now, the reason I'm saying that approach is project management is right now not related to only IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
It could be an upgrade product, it could be a software development project, it could be a construction business, it could be anything and everything, right? So the scope of project management or product management is much beyond infrastructure management. So that's the first part. So having said that, one of the things that I'm looking at is the dollar value, right? So when we talk about financial management, looking at chargeback mechanisms, this is already there in project management as part of PMO, right? What have been they doing as part of stage gatekeepers to understand what's the flow of money, where is the business case, what did we achieve, what is the ROI for it. So that's a kind of a governance mechanism built in through the project and programs and portfolios. So in my opinion, that's a strong influencing for how service management projects needs to be done. So
Yeah.
instead of driving the brick and mortar, you have some best practices that project management methodologies have been doing for ages that could leverage ready, because every time we do a service management project, they ask us, what is the return on investment? I'm not able to see that stuff. So you can actually draw. So I'm saying for me, the PMO aspect or the project management office, the program management office is a huge benefactor for all these projects and service management as well. So that's one part that I'm looking. The second aspect, as part of how project management best practices can prove, is the concept of agility versus DevOps. If you look at DevOps as a concept that has emerged, that's only because these projects have become too much agile. And you really pointed out, Robert pointed out the cultural aspect. That's why we are having a problem, because development teams and applications team have always been poles apart. They don't talk with each other. They think that it's not stuff. And that's what we are trying to achieve as part of the agility, because it's not about project agility, it's about service agility. So I think with two aspects, there has to be a synergy built from project management best practices towards service management best practices. And they have to back each other on that. That's how I look at how these two can work in tandem and influence each other for better. Yeah.
We have a view in Lean that every organization is there to solve the problem of a customer. In which case, then, what services or products are we going to create that is going to solve that problem for that customer? And what governance then has to be put into place to be able to, as quickly as possible, show them something, what we call the minimum viable product, or that they can say, yes, that's going toward the solution of my problem, or yes, that's it, stop for now, and we'll improve it after I get used to it a little bit. And I think that when you take the approach of forcing the issue of building a business case on one piece of A3 and forcing the issue of having 4 key performance indicators on quality, on cost, on employee, and on customer, and having then the team that has to create that solution or that alternative for the customer, to create what they think are indicators of key performance against the major key indicators of key performance. You now drive that collaboration and communication. and that speed that people are looking for. So blending both together provides that governance that maybe ITIL doesn't quite get us to as far as a governance point of view. But the Prince 2 aspect, I like the fact that it's not called Prince Agile. It's Agile Prince 2. And the reason for that is, or at least I think the reason for that is that you're trying to get that agility to get something out there, but you want that governance involved. And if you lose that, if you over restrict it, then you go back to what Robert says. The culture goes back to what they were always doing, and you start working backwards.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, I have nothing to say because you cover everything. But what things that I want to mention really is the communication. The communication is something that we have also to discuss and to elaborate and have a good plan and communication with people and not going by doing things because the idea of communication is really important, and it's often missing into an organization, into a project, into service management project. But you have to think how to communicate well and with proactivities and good inside the DevOps team, inside your project team, and so on. This is really a thing that we don't have to miss. We have to work on it in every project.
Definitely, and I do think it's really interesting now that any conversation that we have about service management, about project management, that there are more and more terms coming in: governance, DevOps, agile, lean. The way we're working, this is a really exciting time, and there's a lot of change happening, which is exciting to see from my perspective. Robert, you just mentioned the importance of good communication, and that's absolutely essential for project management and for service management. And the last sort of topic area that I wanted to touch on today was just your experience of project management and service management. Are there any tips that perhaps you can share with our audience to help them be more successful in their own projects and in their own sort of service management experience as well? Thinking back across things that I've seen in my career, many of the problems I've seen have come from the fact that we've worked in this waterfall way. So you have an incredibly large project, you get the budget signed off at the beginning, it's very difficult to change the scope afterwards, the delivery timescales are very long, and by the end of it, what you're delivering is perhaps not what the customer wanted in the first place, or the technology's moved on so much that what you've delivered has become obsolete. So this move towards more agile ways of working and this move to embrace change is something that I very much welcome. But I think it would be useful if you could share some of your project management experience as well, and just your top tips for success.
So I can probably start because I'm still not on mute. Okay. So the first and foremost thing is looking at different section of projects. So the first projects that I oversee is, because if you look at countries like India and some of these subcontinent, we have a lot of offshoring, outsourced projects, right? So what that happens is the transition planning and support becomes a big challenge, because you have an incumbent who is providing a service to the organization, and then you are transferring that particular work from a vendor A or a supplier A to supplier B. So there's a huge amount of chaos happen when you change from one service provider to another service provider.
Yeah.
So I see IT service management, particularly transition planning and support, coming to rescue when I was doing a transition from a big Fortune 500 company's service from X to Y. So I was the kind of transition project manager. So I was trying to work on understanding their requirements, understanding their stuff to do, So that time, transition planning and support was quite useful because we were able to understand the intricacies of how to plan the transition to until early life cycle support to do that. So that was quite critical to come up with practical transition checklist to understand what areas are being covered, what are not being covered, and if you just go through by the just the scope statement or the statement of work, it really does not give you the correct picture until you actually talk with the incumbent. The incumbent is not going to also share that information because obviously
Yes.
he's going to go out of the project. Why is he interested to share his insight? So you need to build that kind of a rapport to understand it's not you versus I, but can you please help and stuff like that. It's very tough because, but if you're able to get his buy-in, you're going to do a far more superior transition job as opposed to just doing everything on your own. So I think that's very critical to develop that kind of a rapport with the incumbent or the earlier service provider before you take on the baton. So that's been quite successful enough to take these projects from after 3 months to a steady state quickly. Okay. So that's one part that I have learned applying some best practices on transition planning. The second aspect that I've seen, which is very good that we need to do, is the risk management aspect. I think IT service management does not address risk management to an effective way like project management does it. So we have so much amount of risk that is articulated well in advance before we embark on those aspects. So it's not about project risk, it's about business risk, it's about security risk, all these different kind of risk element, looking at probability, likelihood, and mitigation measures. That is
Yep.
very for success. I think if you don't do that well, you're in a deep soup in the way we operate. I think that these two elements have actually been very critical for a project success, as opposed, in addition to definitely the communication aspect, because you're working with diversified teams, virtual teams, where communication becomes a lot of problems. We had a project in Japan, and we were running projects from India. Now we get into conference calls. What happens is we get into these conversations, and then we do not know whether they have understood things completely because
Yeah.
so we used to document that in a main chain. So then they respond back, okay, it's doing. It's that they understood that. But we just want to make sure that they have understood. This two-way communications to be very important to ensure that there is no gap, right? You should still communicate in different formats to ensure that the communication is seamless. So I think these three aspects have been quite significant from a project experience standpoint.
That's some really good advice there, Suresh, and it's good to hear transition planning and support getting a bit of a mention, because I think that's one of the more neglected service management processes, and risk management certainly important. Robert, your top tips for project management.
Okay, the first thing is to understand the requirement. This is really important, to get the right direction, and then just apply the SMART principle, be specific, so really clear in your definition of your deliverables. You can measure, you can is achievable. And so on. So this is really the things that you have to have in mind when you define the requirements, a deliverable. Apply the SMART principle, and you will be successful for that. And as I mentioned, communication is important. And the last point is also as a good impact analysis on what is on production environment today, and on also an impact on your organization, because when you do a change into a new project, a new application, there is also an impact on the people on your organization side. So you have to evaluate all these things before going ahead, and then you can manage that successfully.
Yep, all fantastic advice. And just before we close, Daniel, your top tips?
Leadership has to be involved.
Yes.
Leadership has to be involved on a daily basis. You can't run a project on a monthly report, because you know that monthly report has been tweaked. So any decision that you make, you're not going to see the impact until the next tweaked report a month later. So you've got to get management and the customer and everybody in between collaborating and communicating, like Robert and Suresh have said, on a very regular basis. I think the other thing is we get hung up on the word requirement, and then we break requirements down into functional and non-functional. It's either required or it's not required. You either need it or you don't need it. And actually, at the beginning, they're not requirements, they're assumptions. Everything that you do in IT until you show it to the customer is a waste of time and space and effort and money. So it's an assumption until you give it to them. And they go, yeah, you know what? That's good. I like that. The moment they say that, now it's required. So if you get all the requirements up front and you think of those requirements and then you start thinking about, well, they're functional or not functional, you stop all of that. And if you're going to go down the Agile or DevOps path, get some assumptions, build it even if it's just on paper, show it to them, and then keep going forward like that in very quick iterative cycles. And if management is involved at that level, whatever you create as your service for your customer is going to solve their problem.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's all fantastic advice as well. And I think sometimes it's the most simple things that we forget, like the communication, like understanding the requirements, and that's when we go off down completely the wrong path. So that wraps our time up for today. I would like to say a huge thank you to Daniel, to Robert and to Suresh for sharing their experience with us, and I'll hope to see you all on the next Hangout. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.